Hello, everyone. Welcome tonight. And I wanted to, I'm going to do speaker view here. I wanted to share, oh, sorry. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Okay. I am here with my friend Veronica, who I have met, and she is so knowledgeable about the supplement industry. And I asked her if we could jump on and just have a little interview to learn a little bit more. And I'm so excited that you're here with me tonight. So, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about who you are?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Benny. I'm actually excited to share my story. I get to do this quite frequently. But I'll kind of back up a little bit and just give my backstory. That way I'm not a complete stranger. But I grew up in Chicago, live in Nevada now, actually in a small town called Moapa. But I actually got into the supplement space and the health space about, I would say, the journey started a little over 10 years ago. So I was in my early 20s, and I started to develop some severe gut issues. And it started mainly with not going to the bathroom enough. I was having what you call irregular bowel movements. But it got so bad that it ended up being where I would sometimes go up to 2 weeks without having a bowel movement. And I knew that that wasn't good, but I couldn't find like solutions to it. So eventually the problems progressed and I ended up developing a whole host of challenges because this went on for years. I mean, you're talking about almost, I think, a full 7 years before I finally started turning things around. And so how it ended up progressing is it went from just the irregular bowel movements to then I started having belly bloat and I ended up gaining weight. In fact, I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am today. And then I started developing migraines. And I've always had headaches, but these were a different type of like migraine. And when I went to the doctor, I found out that they were actually something called ocular migraines. So if you don't know what that is, you can look it up. But they're really, really bad. And they actually typically put people on oxygen for ocular migraines. I later learned that it was all connected to my gut. And then it got so bad, I ended up actually having rashes all over my body. So at one point, years into this process, I literally had rashes all over my back, my underarms, my neck. It looked like I had been strangled. And so I was just on this path of trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with me. I went misdiagnosed by 6 different gastroenterologists. All of them gave me the same thing. They said, take more fiber, eat more fibrous foods. But what I found out and what was happening is when I added more fiber, I ended up feeling worse. And then I ended up getting stomach cramping and I wasn't feeling good. And I kept telling the doctor, this is not working. So they tried all different types of things. Some of them had me do food journals. Some of them had me start eliminating, things like dairy. None of it worked. Finally, the last doctor like pleaded with me to get a scope done, and what do they call it? Colonoscopy and then an endoscope so they can look at my gut. And I told him, I said, you're not going to find anything. I said, I know what's wrong with me. And so they did the scopes anyway, sure enough, inconclusive. So what does the doctor tell me? He goes, you have IBS. And I said, okay, great. So I have irritable bowel syndrome. What does that mean? How do we heal it? He goes, well, you can't really heal it. I could just give you pain meds for the pain. Now I was at this point, like still early, almost mid 20s. And I just looked at the doctor. I said, so you're telling me I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life? And the doctor said, well, I mean, that's what people with IBS do. And I didn't take that. Like I looked at him. I thought he was crazy. I walked out of the office, didn't even take the pain pills. And I said, I'm going to figure this out. So that is when I turned the holistic route and I actually started looking for nutritionists. I started looking for naturopaths. And the first person I worked with was a functional practitioner. And in 2 weeks, he figured out what was wrong with me. He did a stool test. And I actually ended up having a very common condition that a lot of people have that go misdiagnosed, and it's called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So essentially, what was happening is you have this microbiome in your gut, right? And I was having basically all the stuff from my colon backing up into my small intestine. And so it was creating havoc in my small intestine, and that's where the pain and everything was coming from. Here's what's crazy: a 14-month plan of supplementation and lifestyle changes like my diet and whatnot. He said I would be able to literally change my entire history with my health. And sure enough, I did what he said. I didn't add the supplementation in until a little bit later, but it took about, once I got on a full supplement regimen and then dietary changes, it took about 8 months to get me back to normal after essentially dealing with something for almost about 7 years or so. So that is my story of how I got into the health space. And I love teaching people about this now because it's transformed my health. And there's 3 people I know now that have personally come to me with gut issues. And I said, hey, have you been tested for SIBO? And all 3 of them, they're like, no, I haven't, but I'm going to try it. Sure enough, they had SIBO, just based off of what they told me. So I'm not a doctor, full disclaimer, but the things that I've learned, I can now understand, some of the basics, and that's where we are today, Benny. So
that's so amazing. Well, thank you so much for telling us a little bit about yourself. I also have found out that you're living in a trailer while you're building your home, which is fantastic. My next question for you is, why is supplementation important? So it sounds like you've discovered that in your journey. So have I. I've always been someone who thought I could get all my nutrients from food. And clearly my nails growing and are shiny and, things that I've experienced with supplementation. I'm blown away, but I'd love for you to just share why supplementation can be so important. So that would be my next question.
Yeah. Well, there's really 3 things that happened in history. Okay. And you guys can write this down if you're taking notes or whatnot. But back after it was, I believe, World War II, I forget what year that was, but we introduced into the market something called like fast and canned food, right? This was new. We didn't have this type of food prior. And so a lot of that type of food was depleted of nutrients as it is, but that alone was the start to it. Then when you reach, I think it was around the 60s or so, we introduced spraying crops with herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, and whatnot. Well, when you actually start to understand what these pesticides do, sure, it's for, bug control or whatever they say it's for, but what they don't tell you is that over time starts to deplete the valuable minerals out of the soil. Okay, so you now take from the 60s to today, the food that we grow today is nowhere close to the same in nutritional value from the food that we ate back then. And I'll give you an example because I can't remember where I read this, but it blew my mind when I learned about it, was that if you took an apple from around that time frame, like the 60s and 70s, in order to get the same nutritional value, now this was not 6 years ago, this was about 4 years ago, so the data might be different today, but about 4 years ago, to get the same nutritional from that one apple back then, you would have to eat the equivalent of over 120 apples. Like, that's nuts if you think about it. Okay, I'll even give you another quick story. My husband has always really grown up on a farm, and he was telling me, we were talking about this just the other day, he was telling me that his mom used to spray Roundup, the weed killer, on their property. And he noticed over time that the soil started to become like really clay-like, or not even clay-like, it got really hard, and he could tell that it wasn't nutritional anymore. So that's just a real life story of what happens. And obviously any of you watching this have probably seen some of the crazy stories about Roundup and how it's got cancer-causing agents and all that crazy stuff in it. So anyway, that's the second thing that has happened in our history, is we started spraying our crops, depleting our food of valuable nutrients. Then the third thing that happened is in the 90s, we introduced genetically modified foods. Okay, GMOs, the world of genetically modified organisms. Okay, well, those are, again, not things that we should be putting in our body. It's foreign to our body. So again, if your body can't break that down, it can wreak havoc and start creating a toxic overload in the system. So why is supplementation important? Well, number one, we have to get our essential vitamins and minerals in order for our body to function. In fact, I say this a lot to people. Most individuals, we are not like medication. We're not prescription deficient. We're actually nutrient deficient. And when you start learning about the human body, when the human body has the valuable nutrients that it needs, it can function pretty darn well. But if it's lacking even just one of those essential minerals or vitamins, you can start to see how the body comes out of balance. So those are the 3 ways Benny, that we have gotten to where we are today and why it's important to start supplementing.
That's amazing. I actually had someone, a business coach of mine, share with me last year that she thought that I was depleted. And I thought to myself, but I eat well, I move my body, I'm doing all the things. And I don't know if you can see my nails. I've never actually had nails before. They've never been shiny. My hair wasn't growing. And I haven't told you this yet, but I actually went for a run for the first time yesterday in a year and a half. And I don't have any plantar fasciitis. And it has been about 7 years that anytime I would exercise, wear the wrong shoes, I would have pain.
Yeah.
And just in the last few months of introducing supplementation, I have noticed a drastic change in my body on the inside and the outside as well. So
I love it. I love it.
makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. Okay, so the next question is what to look for when we're looking at supplements. So there are a lot out there. And similarly to when we're reading a food label, what do we look for when we are choosing a supplement?
Yep. So I'll start by saying this because I know this was a journey that took me some time to learn, but there are some simple things and tips and tricks that I'm going to teach you. But the biggest one that I always look for first is some of the no-nos. Okay. Some people like to call it a never list. I like to just call it the no-nos. Our company actually likes to call it a transparency promise, where they say no to certain things that they will just never have in their products. In fact, I'm going to pull that up real quick, and anybody who wants to find this later on can pull it right up on our website, or, you can ask Benny and she can send it to you. But if we go to our about section and I go down to right here under health, you'll actually see that there's this commitment. The commitment is to clean ingredients. So you'll see here, like it says something like no parabens, no phthalates, no gluten, no BHA or BHT. So a lot of these things are some of the things that I immediately tell somebody that you want to avoid in your supplements. Now, there are some other ingredients that I personally also say no to. They are not in our products, but you tend to find them in a lot of supplements that are out there. And I'm going to tell you what some of those are here in just a moment. But if you want to pull this up, you can click that button and it'll pull up a whole transparency promise and you can read more about that. But the biggest one that I want to talk about is this gluten, especially because most individuals, I shouldn't say most, all individuals have some form of gluten intolerance, whether they feel the effects or not. And so what I always tell people is, number one, off the bat, just make sure that your products are gluten-free. So that's the biggest one. And then of course, parabens is my second biggest one that I say no to. Parabens are also in cosmetics, by the way. And parabens are typically, it'll start with some form of like methyl or whatever, and then paraben at the end. So you might see different forms of parabens, but it'll have that like prefix. And so you'll see that on your bottles if you're ever looking for it. It might not just say paraben, it might say like methyl paraben, if that makes sense. Okay, so no parabens whatsoever. And then the other ones that I typically try to look at is things like maltodextrin is one that I typically stay away from. You guys can look this up and read more about it, but maltodextrin can actually mess with blood sugar intolerances. And it can also actually damage the gut lining from what people have found about maltodextrin. And that's another big one that I stay away from. And then, of course, things like high fructose corn syrup, because, of course, that can be genetically modified. And usually you will find high fructose corn syrup in a lot of products, whether it's food products, supplement products. And then I'm trying to think of the other one off the top of my head. There is one that's unique that we'll dive into here in a moment, Benny, when we start looking at that label. Because there are some ingredients sometimes that at first glance, you would be worried about it once you get educated. but you just have to understand that sometimes there's a natural version of that ingredient versus a non-natural. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. But then the last biggest thing that I say with supplements, what you're looking for is, unfortunately, in the supplement world, 95% of supplements that are made are synthetically made. Okay, so here's what synthetically made means. It just means that they're made in a lab so that the ingredients are not derived from whole food sources. So the question that I always get is, well, how do you start to identify this? Okay, the easiest way when you're brand spanking new is when you look at that label, okay, in parentheses next to the vitamin or the mineral or whatever's listed, it will have in parentheses the source of that vitamin. So I'm going to use vitamin C as an example because this is the biggest one that people typically take, a vitamin C supplement. In parentheses, if you ever see it say like ascorbic acid or calcium ascorbate, or there's another version of it like some sort of sugar ascorbate or sodium ascorbate, okay, any of those are a lab-derived version of vitamin C, okay? Now, I always ask people, what do you think is better for your body? Eating a raw orange, which is full of something called phytonutrients, or eating a supplement that is lab-derived, that, by the way, ascorbic acid is typically GMO corn syrup and hydrochloric acid. What do you think is better for your body? The orange or the ascorbic acid? Okay, so when you look at that label of a whole food source, like what you'll see on our vitamin C, you'll actually see that in parentheses, it says acerola cherries. Acerola cherries happen to be one of the fruits that have the highest concentration of vitamin C, hence why we use that in our supplements. So that off the bat is the simplest way to start looking at what's in your products. Now, when we get into the conversation around minerals, that's a little bit different because you might not be able to pronounce some of those things, but it's important. We won't dive heavy into that today, but minerals are a little bit of a different conversation because they have to methylate them. And so usually if you can't pronounce it, it doesn't always mean that it's bad. It just means that it's formulated in a way that your body can utilize it. But from a vitamin perspective, what I say, if you can't pronounce it, you can look it up. I always say this is how you start to learn. Look it up. I tend to use the EWG website. It's the Environmental Working Group, and you can actually look up that ingredient and you can get they'll basically give you a scale of 1 to 10 on how dirty or clean that ingredient is. And that's actually how I started educating myself when I didn't know, and how I started finding cleaner ingredients.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. That really makes a lot of sense for me. As I said, this is just in my cupboard for when we got sick. And yes, it does say ascorbic acid and then the acerola cherries here. So that's super helpful. Yeah.
Awesome. Good.
Okay. Are we moving on to our next question?
Let's do it. What do you got?
So my next question is, what makes Trenaunce products unique? So, I mean, I know the number one for me is they work. So I was taking biotin for my nails for about 2 years, as well as a powdered collagen. And I can tell you that I never noticed a difference, but you just keep taking it because you think, the more you take it, the more it'll work, right? And as I said, even just a few weeks after taking some of these high quality supplements, my nails started to grow for the first time. My hair is healthy. My hips not hurting. So I know there's something really special here. But what, in your words, makes Trenaunce products super unique?
Yep. One of the major ones, the first biggest thing is that our formulas are off of the whole food concept. So again, like I shared earlier, you're going to see that the ingredients for like our microbiome blend and our Enrich, or I should say our Balance, or our nutrients in them come from whole food sources. So that's the one major big difference. And this is also good to talk about. We might talk about it later, but this is important because our supplements are actually not the cheapest in the market. Okay. But I always say to people, you get what you pay for. Okay. Just because something might be the cheapest doesn't mean it's the best for your body. Okay. And I'll use the example of ascorbic acid again, because a lot of people don't know this, But do you know that high doses of ascorbic acid on the body over time, especially if somebody's like genetically predisposed to this, can actually cause fatty liver issues? Okay. Or it can cause other health issues. But a lot of people just don't know that because they just don't know what they don't know. The other big thing that a lot of people don't know is that when you start using synthetic vitamins or lab derived vitamins, your body has to have a balance of vitamins and minerals for it to work, right? Well, Dr. Group found this in the 1990s. You can look up Dr. Group. He's in the holistic space as well. And he explained that when you start taking synthetic vitamins, if you're taking those over the course of a long, long time, he goes, those vitamins will actually deplete your mineral reserves in your body. So he's even seen in his own practice people who essentially took all these types of vitamins thinking they were doing something good for their body, when in fact what they were doing was depleting the minerals from their body, and it led to them getting sicker, not better. Okay, so that's just another big thing. So all in all, whole food nutrients first and foremost. Second biggest thing is you're going to actually see in some of our core set of products, we actually have minerals in there as well, which most of the time a good multivitamin is just that. It's a multivitamin, where our daily multivitamin is a powerful blend of antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. So you're essentially getting all your daily nutrients, not just your daily vitamins, and again, from whole food sources. Okay. And then, of course, the third thing that's really big about our products is that transparency promise that I shown you briefly, is that we say no to certain ingredients that we just will never put in our products. Fourth thing that makes them really, really powerful is a lot of our products, not all of them, but a lot of them have proprietary blends in them, or like a proprietary process for how it's formulated. In fact, I believe our collagen alone has like 7 different patents on it. Yeah, 7. Okay, so it's extremely unique. And, without diving into all of that, that's just a big, unique indicator all around. And then the fifth thing I would say is we also have something on our products, a standard called GMP certification, stands for Good Manufacturing Practices. If you don't know much about it, you can read about it online, but essentially it's not a requirement for supplements to have this. However, higher quality supplements you will find have that stamp of GMP certification. And essentially what that means is our manufacturer, who does all the manufacturing, they actually have to abide by a much more stringent protocol for how they manufacture the products and whatnot that they make. And they actually, so supplements are not FDA regulated, but good manufacturing practices in those facilities are actually monitored by the FDA. So it is just an extra layer to prove that we have high quality supplementation. And again, it's not a requirement, but our company decided to partner with a manufacturer that has that GMP certification. So those would be my top 5.
So much. You're blowing my mind. This is amazing. So much good stuff here. And my last question for you is, if you have some quick facts or some, of your tidbits for some of my favorite products, because I'm still learning and I'm really excited. So I'll share with you some of my favorite products, and you can maybe pick a couple that you want to talk to. So I know the Enrich is one of my absolute favorites. The digestive enzyme with the stabilized pre and probiotic. The collagen is one of my absolute favorites. The Mojo is one of my favorites, and I've just started taking the Renew. So if you want to just pick a couple of those that you can share with us just a little bit more.
Yep. So Enrich is my number one go-to for literally everyone, because digestion is the cornerstone of overall health. It is. If you are not properly digesting your food, okay, which by the way, everybody, I don't care who you are, as you get older, all of us have trouble digesting our food. It doesn't digest the same way when we were little. And that's not me just saying that. There's actually a book you can read called Enzyme Nutrition. And on that book, it basically explains the importance of enzymes and how our body depletes of enzymes. So you can read that book if you want to learn more about it. So what Enrich does is Enrich is specifically a enzyme blend. We call it a full spectrum enzyme blend. So what full spectrum means is that it has every single enzyme to break down all the different food groups that we eat, from dairy to fats to protein to your carbs. And the most important one is your fibrous foods, your vegetables and your beans, because a lot of people don't know this, but our human bodies do not make the enzymes to break down vegetables, that actual fibrous stuff. So believe it or not, vegetables end up being a hard thing for people to break down. So very interesting to note. So it has that blend, which helps with the digestive process. And essentially when your body and supplementation helps with breaking down food to the smallest molecule, then when that food reaches your intestinal lining, your intestines can easily absorb whatever nutrients are in that food. So why I reach for Enrich first and foremost is because even if somebody's not taking a multivitamin, they're going to actually get more nutrients from the food that they're eating by adding Enrich in, because it's digesting the food down so that the body can do the work to extract the nutrients from what they're eating. The second thing people tend to notice a lot when they start taking Enrich is their energy levels naturally just raise, because how many of you have ever eaten food before and then you feel like you're in a food coma? You want to go to sleep. Yeah, that's because 80% of your energy when you eat goes to digestion. But when you start adding in a supplement that helps with it, your body's not so tired anymore. And it can actually have the energy for all the other stuff that you want to do. And then the last thing about Enrich is the stabilized pre and probiotics. That's just to help put all the good beneficial nutrients to help keep a healthy gut microbiome. Because again, a healthy gut means you have a healthy immune system and you have overall health and well-being. So Enrich is my go-to. The second product that I heard you mention, Benny, was what? Collagen?
Yeah, that was my first and favorite.
Okay. Well, collagen is awesome and it's good for anybody to start taking because, again, just like digestive enzymes, we deplete them as we get older. Collagen's the same way. Collagen is the structural protein in our body. In fact, type 1 collagen, which is what our product is formulated of, type 1, that makes up 90% of your entire body, essentially, like your connective tissues, your gut lining, your blood vessels, all of it. In fact, vision, and there's stuff with your vision that comes from collagen. So I learned this statistic. You have more collagen in your bones than there is calcium. Crazy, right? So when you hear people dealing with certain challenges as they get older with maybe their bones, it could also be a lack of collagen. Okay. By our mid-20s, we start to deplete on average 1% of our collagen per year. Now, if you have a really unhealthy lifestyle, like maybe you eat a lot of sugary foods, maybe you smoke, or ladies, if you like to go bake in the sun and get suntans, guess what? The sun actually depletes your collagen faster. Okay, so this is why you see, whether it's wrinkles in your skin, ladies might notice it with cellulite. And by the way, men get cellulite too. You just don't see it as much because of the way our bodies are structured. But anyway, you see it in cellulite. Poor gut health is also potentially a sign of collagen deficiency. So by adding in collagen, you'll see all these amazing benefits for hair, skin, nails, but also what it's doing internally is it can help with your gut lining. And then for men, this is not just a ladies product. It can also help with your joints and joint health. Because I think of, the cartilage and the ligaments that you have in your knees or your joints. Okay. Collagen, taking that is like taking WD-40 for your joints. Okay. It just keeps it lubricated. And so you'll actually notice that people actually start to notice really good joint health when they start adding in a good quality collagen. So that's I'd say my biggest thing on collagen.
And I just turned 40 and let me tell you, taking this collagen, I noticed results after a week. Yep. My hip, I have had a hip injury since I was in my late 20s. I have done every kind of physio, athletic therapy, laser therapy, exercise, you name it. And it just was chronically sore, as well as I would get tendonitis and then plantar fasciitis. And I have just noticed a huge difference. And I can feel it in my body. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's only going to get better the longer you're on it.
Yeah.
I love it. What were the other products that you said? Renew,
Other
I think.
ones that I really love, I mean, I'm still trying all the products, but
Yeah.
my other favorite is the Mojo. And I
Yep.
have just started taking the Renew.
Okay. Well, let's talk Mojo because that is also another big product that a lot of people love. And there's another like sister product to it called Zest. But don't let Mojo or Zest confuse you because they're really the same formulation. They're just different flavors, if that makes sense. So Mojo comes in a chocolate flavor or a coffee flavor. Zest comes in like your lemonade flavors. So lavender vanilla lemonade or roasted peach lemonade. And to me, I think all of them are delicious. Personally, the only one I don't drink by itself is the chocolate. I mix the chocolate with my coffee. That's just, anyway, that's me. But what I love about this, so it is a nootropic coffee or lemonade, of course, in the different flavors. It's a nootropic. What are new? Well, it's nootropics. I can never say that word. Nootropics. What are nootropics? Nootropics are essentially the nutrients that help with your brain. They help with mental clarity, with less brain fog, and natural energy without causing that jittery effect. So a lot of B vitamins is what you're going to find in a nootropic blend. And that's what you're going to find in our coffee. So the first thing that it does is it helps with mood and energy, and that's because of the nootropic blend. The second thing is there's some ingredients in there that actually help with blood sugar regulation. So when I talk to people who are looking to have healthier blood sugar levels, I will have them reach and add Mojo alongside Enrich. So adding Enrich and Mojo together can have some really good benefits for somebody with blood sugar challenges. And then the third thing that a lot of people tend to see with our Mojo and Zest products is better weight management. Hint, hint, wink, wink, yes, potentially weight loss. And that's because there is a blend of natural ingredients as well that help with fat burning and calorie burning. So because you put those three blends together all in one, we find that a lot of people who normally drink coffee have now switched over to Mojo, which was me as well. And then the biggest thing that I personally love the most is if somebody has gut issues, okay, like someone like me, I actually had to stop drinking coffee because conventional coffee typically has mold in it or what they call mycotoxins. And this is over 90% of the coffee that's sold. And so what I love about Mojo is part of our GMP certification. It is actually tested. It's third-party lab tested. So before it leaves the warehouse, it's tested for those things to ensure that it's clean of mycotoxins. So someone like myself who has gut issues can actually drink that and not have any sort of like imbalance or like the issues that a normal cup of coffee can cause for somebody with a gut imbalance.
I live next to a coffee roaster. I can smell it. I have my coffee blend, and I stopped drinking coffee in the spring when I was having some gut hormone challenges. But I really miss drinking coffee, and I sort of was starting to reintroduce it in my life. And one of the things, thank you so much for explaining the nootropics. I know one of my friends was like, "Oh, I've heard so much great things about it." I had
Yeah.
never heard of it before. And I cannot, it's hard to explain. I have energy. I have a 7-year-old, and normally when I put him to bed and read that bedtime story,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm either like, need to like boost myself to stay up till midnight, or I just crash. And
Yeah.
what I'm finding now is I have that energy in the evenings. I'm just overall, I'm have more energy throughout the day, and I'm ready to tackle the day. And I've heard people say this, and I'm like, wow, it's like amazing. So that's
Crazy.
just, I'm the kind of person that I love to know what things are doing for my body,
Yes.
because then I find once we know what we're looking for, education is amazing. And I think that that's why I'm so excited to take on the next step in my health journey, because
Yes.
it is a journey. We're
Yes.
always learning new things. When we know better, we do better. And so I have just been, yeah, it's just been such a fun process to learn more and take more and feel fantastic.
Yeah.
I actually, part of my story, Veronica, was I was determined to go into my 40s fabulous. I turned 40 in March, and I had a dream of running a 10K. That did not happen due to my and I also was dealing with a whole bunch of hormone and energy challenges. And I was really disappointed because I was like 40 and fabulous. So now I'm 40 and a half. And I can say that I am feeling better than I have in years. And I'm so excited that I am learning as I go, learning as I grow.
Oh, I love that.
So
So are
yeah,
you still going to do the 10K?
you know what? I just went for my first run yesterday, and
Awesome.
I telling you, I woke up this morning and I was lying in bed and I almost didn't want to get out of bed because I was like, is my hip and my feet gonna hurt? And I feel
Right.
fantastic. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in a goal for a 10K. You can hear my
Oh, I
seven.
love it.
Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you want to share with us before we wrap up?
The last thing I'll share, and this is really good on the coffee. Hi. It's really good on the coffee. Yeah. It's good on the coffee is the Enhance. So there's a product we have called Enhance. It's a creamer, and I actually want to put this in here because with coffee, one of the biggest things that's super important to have with your coffee when you're drinking it is high healthy fats. So you might notice that people put like creamer or milk. Yeah, go do what you got to do, Betty. You might have a creamer that people put as like flavoring, but believe it or not, having a high healthy fat with coffee can lead to less of the irritation that people who might be feeling the effects of jitteriness that coffee can cause. High healthy fats are good to pair with coffee. So our Enhance creamer that you'll be able to read more ingredients on it, but it's got healthy fats in it and it's got an amino acid blend. So in that Enhance creamer, you're going to see 9 essential amino acids. Those help click the brain on. So Enhance is actually something that, again, a lot of people like creamer with their coffee, but there's some people that don't. And even those that don't, I say, hey, at least try it because the benefits of pairing a good quality creamer with coffee is actually really, really good for the body. In fact, I've even had some individuals who struggle with like the jitteriness or even like anxious feelings if they ever drink caffeine before. And so what I've had them do is I've had them, number one, make sure that before they drink their coffee, they have some sort of food in their system because drinking on an empty stomach, especially if you have anxious feelings, can make that even worse. The second thing I have them do is I'll actually have them start with half a scoop of our Mojo instead of a full scoop. They can always go up to a full scoop, but then that way at least they're trying if they've dealt with that anxious feelings before, they could try it with just half a scoop. And then I have them add the creamer so that the creamer can help balance out by bringing in those healthy fats, bringing in the essential amino acids. And I've had a lot of great success with individuals who could never drink coffee before, and now they love it because of doing just those couple things.
That's amazing. Thanks, 7-year-old emergency. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking time and sharing with us. And I look forward to learning more as I go along. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Benny. Anytime. It was great to be here.